China. A country has $18 trillion of GDP, 1.4 billion of population, and $254 billion of trade volume with the African countries. This economic giant creates its own rules to dominate the world. Although it has no colonial past in Africa, it became one of the most important actors in this continent. China is one of the biggest economic powers in Africa with the economic programs it has implemented in recent years. The development of China-Africa relations could be divided into three phases. The first phase lasts from the 1950s to the end of the 1970s. This period is marked by the need of struggle against Western imperialism for both China and Africa. An ideological affinity and mutual diplomatic support constituted the defining characteristics of the relations between China and African countries. The second phase started almost at the same time as the reform and opening up policy was implemented in China in the late 1970s, which continued throughout the 1990s. The third phase began with the establishment of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation in 2000 and has continued until now, marking a level of multifaceted engagement between China and African countries. In 2015, the African Union and China signed an agreement to build railways, roads, and airports to link all 54 African countries. There are several examples how this agreement is already being implemented through large-scale infrastructure projects in cooperation with China on the continent. Let's check the major countries for China. Egypt is of great strategic importance for the Maritime Silk Road as it controls the Suez Canal which links Asia and Europe. China is supporting numerous infrastructure projects in Egypt, including up to $15 billion financing for the development of the country's $45 billion new administrative capital. During Xi Jinping's visit to Egypt in 2016, the two countries signed a 5-year strategic cooperation agreement focusing on industrial and infrastructure development. The two sides also agreed to double their efforts to develop the China-Egypt-Suez Economic and Trade Cooperation Zone and cooperate on Egypt's plans for the development of the Suez Canal Economic Corridor and the construction of a new administrative capital. The China-Egypt-Suez Economic and Trade Cooperation Zone, located 120 kilometers south of Cairo on the Red Sea, has attracted 68, mostly Chinese enterprises with a total investment of about $1 billion and created more than 2,000 jobs for local workers. Making Egypt one of the first Belt and Road participants in Africa can be further explained through the strategic importance of Egypt's Suez Canal for connecting the Indian Ocean with the Mediterranean Sea, which is the basis of the Maritime Silk Road and in line with its historic context. Egypt is also China's fourth largest trading partner on the continent and receives a considerable amount of Chinese investment in infrastructure, industrial cooperation, and power projects. Morocco provides another direct link to Europe on the Maritime Silk Road. It is also a member of the Arab League with which President Xi Jinping committed to jointly implement the Belt and Road Initiative. Morocco's deep-water Tanger port is already a main gateway between Europa and Africa with 36 established shipping lines to 22 African countries. Algeria and China agreed to construct a $3.3 billion transshipment port at Churchill, 60 kilometers west of the capital city of Algiers. The port, constructed by China Harbour Engineering Company and China State Construction Engineering Corporation. In Djibouti and Ethiopia, the $4 billion Djibouti Port Addis Ababa railway line, which has been mainly financed and built by Chinese partners, began trial operation in 2015. Chinese state-owned enterprise China Merchants Group is the second-largest shareholder of the Port of Djibouti and investing in expanding the port's infrastructure to make it its first Silk Road hub. In Djibouti, a free trade zone was announced as part of China's trade and banking agreement signed in 2016. The core region of the free trade zone covers an area of about 48 square kilometers, including a park for business and trade along with logistics services and another one for export processing. With $7 billion, China Merchants Holdings International is the sole investor of the project, which is to provide 20,000 local jobs. Ethiopia is the second most populous country on the continent and its economy has grown in average more than 10% per year over the last decade. In Ethiopia, China has also financed and constructed the Addis Ababa and Adama Highway, Addis Ababa Ring Road, the new international airport, as well as special economic zones. China's flag carrier Air China is including direct flights between Beijing and Addis Ababa as well as Beijing and Johannesburg. The focus of China's industrial cooperation with Ethiopia is on the development of an economic corridor, including several industrial parks along the Addis Ababa-Djibouti Port Railway line. The first such industrial park, the Chinese-owned Eastern Industrial Zone, was built in Duqm in 2007. Kenya received one of China's largest infrastructure investments on the continent, around $3.8 billion, with the establishment of Mombasa-Nairobi Railway Line, also known as the Standard Gauge Railway, which is to 90% financed by China's Exim Bank and constructed by China Road and Bridge Corporation. There are plans to further extend the railway to Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, and South Sudan, connecting these countries' capitals and creating a new economic corridor in the region. China is also significantly expanding Kenya's main ports in Lamu and Mombasa, which is to cost $5.3 billion and will serve as the maritime entry point to the Lapset corridor. In Tanzania, China has a large-scale infrastructure investment in the expansion of the Bagamoyo port. Chinese state-owned companies hold shares in the ports of Dar es Salaam and Mtwara. Another key infrastructure project that China is investing in is to revive the Tanzania-Zambia Railway. Built by China between 1970 and 1975, it links the port of Dar es Salaam in Tanzania with Kapiri-Mposhi in Zambia's Copper Belt. At the time of its completion, the 1,860 km railway was the single longest railway in sub-Saharan Africa, and with a construction cost of $500 million, the largest single foreign aid project undertaken by China at the time. However, over the decades the railway became almost completely dysfunctional due to mismanagement and a lack of maintenance. China has proposed to restore the railway and link it with 1,344 km Bengala Railway, connecting Angola's Atlantic port of Lobito to the eastern border town of Luau, which was completed by a Chinese state-owned enterprise in August 2014, at a cost of $1.8 billion. This would be the first connection between the Indian and Atlantic Ocean by rail. In Mozambique, a consortium of Chinese companies announced to invest $1 billion to construct a new port in Maputo. There has been limited cooperation with China on Mozambique's industrialization, with the exception of a steel factory, a cement factory, and the development of a special economic zone in Beira, which is Mozambique's second largest city. The Mangamangasa Special Economic Zone is located 12 kilometers from the port of Beira, along the Beira Economic Corridor, which connects Mozambique with Malawi, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. Dingshan International Investment has invested $260 million in the development and management of the light industry zone to date. Mozambique was selected by China as a China-Africa Industrial Cooperation Priority country. The building of two deep water ports and adjacent special economic zones in Maputo and Beira is making Mozambique another stop along the Maritime Silk Road on Africa's east coast. During his visit to Mozambique in February 2016, China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi stated that China will view Mozambique as a natural extension of the 21st century Maritime Silk Road and boost cooperation with Mozambique in marine economy and port neighboring industrial parks and transfer its advantageous production capacity and mature technologies to this country. In Congo, the China Road and Bridge Corporation accepted to build a new port at Pointe-Noire, Congo's economic capital. Congo is the only China-Africa Industrial Cooperation demonstration and pioneering country that is located at the Atlantic coast. With its inclusion in the Belt and Road Initiative, the Maritime Silk Road would hence expand further up north from Angola into the geostrategically important Gulf of Guinea. The large-scale Pointe-Noire deep water port development project, coupled with a special economic zone and railway and road projects connecting Congo to its neighboring countries, provide a solid basis for the country to develop into a maritime Silk Road hub in the Gulf of Guinea. In Cameroon, China Harbour Engineering Company has constructed the $1 billion Kribi Industrial Port Complex with 85% of the costs financed by China Exim Bank. Cameroon's first deep-water port is being connected to urban areas, including Yaoundé via roads and railway links constructed by Chinese companies. Nigeria is Africa's most populous country and China's third-largest trading partner on the continent. In Nigeria, the China Railway Construction Corporation signed a $12 billion contract to build a 1,400 kilometers railway along Nigeria's coastline, connecting Lagos with Benin and Cameroon. Furthermore, the China Railway Construction Corporation has recently completed the Abuja-Kaduna Railway, which is the first phase of a larger railway modernization project connecting Lagos with Kano in Nigeria's north. Other large Chinese-invested infrastructure projects include the port of Lekki and the adjacent Lekki Free Trade Zone. Senegal and Mali have entered into $2.73 billion agreements with the China Railway Construction Corporation on the repair and reconstruction of the 1,286 kilometers railway between the port of Dakar and Bamako. The agreement includes staff training and the modernization of 22 railway stations. Angola is also receiving Chinese contributions in industrialization efforts, but they have been limited, with some notable exceptions in the building materials and automobile industries. Only in 2015, during a state visit by Angola's president, China and Angola agreed to transform the bilateral cooperation from the traditional areas of raw materials development and project contracting to production capacity and investment cooperation by strengthening cooperation on industrialization in the areas of iron and steel, building materials, textiles and agro-processing. Following this agreement, first loans for the development of industrial zones were made available by China in April 2016. Angola received the largest share of China's loans between 2000 and 2014, is China's second largest trading partner and number one oil exporter on the continent. Angola has further been selected by China as a China-Africa Industrial Cooperation Priority country. With Angola, the Belt and Road Initiative will further expand from its ancient route, venturing into the Atlantic Ocean. South Africa is a country that has signed a Memorandum of Understanding with China on the Belt and Road Initiative. The inclusion of South Africa is significant as it expands the Maritime Silk Road beyond its ancient route to the south. South Africa is by far China's largest trading partner on the African continent and has a broad portfolio of projects with China in the area of infrastructure and power projects as well as the financial sector and industrial cooperation. China's great economic involvement in Africa is continuing. If you want to learn more details about the Chinese economic enlargement in the upcoming videos, you can leave your comments.